Hi everybody, Jake here. Hope everyone's doing well today. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about a topic I'd been kind of thinking about for a couple weeks now. I was going to get to this right after the Super Bowl, but a couple other videos just got in the way. I did some mock draft stuff, but it was about the Eagles' blueprint and the blueprint that they laid out for success in the NFL in the future, and what I think the Browns can do to kind of follow the Philadelphia Eagles blueprint. So let's go ahead and jump into this video. If we take a look at what the Eagles did well offensively throughout the entire regular season and playoffs, was they ran the ball effectively. I think we all saw that stat that they put up, or the graphic that they showed up in the Super Bowl with what an offensive line looked like in what I think it was actually like the first Super Bowl, like Green Bay's offensive line in the first Super Bowl compared to now. And it's like the Eagles offensive line is like 150 pounds heavier than all their guys. It was nuts. But they have a huge offensive line. They have a great offensive line, and then they have one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the NFL, Saquon Barkley back there in their backfield with Jalen Hurts, who can also run the ball really effectively. So, and then defensively, they're also really sound there. They have a great defense, they have a great pass rush. So, the Eagles laid down a good blueprint here of how to be successful. They were second in rushing, but if we look at their passing, they were 29th in passing. So, what does it really take in the NFL to be successful? I believe it's winning in the trenches, winning the offensive line battle, winning the defensive line battle, running the ball effectively, not turning the ball over. All things that the Eagles do very, very well. How does this pertain to the Browns? I'll jump into my first point of what I think the Browns need to do going forward. The first thing is revamp their offensive line. Am I asking the Browns to be Philadelphia's offensive line? No. Philadelphia has an embarrassment of riches with how big their offensive line is, how agile those guys are over there, being as big as they are. Am I asking the Browns to do that? No. But what my proposition for the Browns would be to revamp this offensive line is at left tackle is where the most glaring issue is right now. We had Jedrick Wills there. He went down. You moved Dawand Jones from right tackle over to left tackle. It wasn't the greatest fit there with him. He's just so big. And then you just kind of had fits in all year with like Germain Ifedi, and you're throwing guys in there. What I think the Browns need to do is draft a left tackle. I've provided many picks that the Browns could take and many answers to this. But the left tackle, Jonas Savaiinaea, Ariante Ursary, and Marcus Embo in the draft coming up. I think all those could be franchise left tackles. All those guys are great run fits, and you can even draft a guy like Gray Zabel, who could be a tackle, could be a guard. But if you get two offensive linemen, three offensive linemen in this NFL draft, I think you'd feel great about that if you're the Browns. Another proposition I have, and maybe this is crazy, I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but Dawand Jones has struggled at tackle. He was a little better at right tackle, but he struggled at tackle just due to his size. What if we move Dawand Jones over to like left guard or right guard? I know it'd be a lot because you've kind of moved him around and you've kind of tried to find the fit for him, and maybe that would be a lot for him. But to find a fit on this team, you would have a huge guard, and then with Joel Bitonio possibly retiring, there's your left guard opening right there. So at left tackle, I think you need to draft somebody. Like I said, Savaiinaea, Ursary, Gray Zabel, Marcus Embo. Any of those guys I think would be great fits. They're also huge. Go look at their height weight. They're all 6'4", 305 to 315. They're pretty big guys. So you draft your franchise left tackle, and then maybe move Dawand Jones over to left guard. You have a huge guy at your guard spot right there. You probably need to address center. You have Ethan Pocic, and you probably don't feel great about that. The great thing about that is you have guys in this draft. Seth McLaughlin, Jake Majors. Seth McLaughlin was one of the best centers in college football last year before he went down with injury. He's probably going to drop pretty far in the draft. You could probably get him for a 4th, 5th round pick, 6th round pick even. Who knows? He's probably not going to work out at the combine. You're probably not going to get too much from him. Too many gauges, at least at the combine of him. So who knows? You take a shot on a guy like that, take a shot on a guy like Jake Majors, and then in free agency, Drew Alman. He's a great run fit guy. And that's also another thing with all of these guys. These are all great run fit guys that you can put in the offensive line. And that's what I think is going to be important, because we know that the Browns are going to go back to this heavy zone run attack that Kevin Stefanski wants to get back to. So, and then options at guard, if you want to go a different route than moving DeWand over there, you can sign a guy like Kevin Zeitler. We know about him. And then the Eagles, Mekhi Becton, he is enormous. You go offer them contracts. These are just options at the offensive line that I think could really revamp this thing for the Browns. And then guys at right guard, you have Wyatt Teller, and then you have Jack Conklin over there that you feel decently about. But these are options going forward that I think the Browns could pursue at the offensive line spot. Just jumping into my next point here, what I think the Browns should do, and I've come around more on this idea. I've also touched on this idea on this channel a couple times, but that would be signing Justin Fields at quarterback. I've said it many a time on this channel. I don't believe that Justin Fields has truly ever had a super fair shake outside of the early days in Chicago, but even then, how great of playmakers were around him. Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts are pretty similar to me in my mind. Now, obviously, Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback. He's a great player, but look at the frame of Justin Fields and look at the frame of Jalen Hurts. They're very similar. The things that they both struggle with, they both struggle seeing over the middle of the field, vision over the middle of the field, getting passes to the middle of the field, but that's also not what they so much ask Jalen Hurts to do in Philly, and that's also what I don't think Kevin would ask that of Justin Fields in Cleveland. Jalen Hurts is a big run fit guy. They have a lot of organized or designed runs for Jalen Hurts, and we all know the tush push and everything. So if you look at Jalen Hurts' stats on the year, he threw it for a $187 on average a game. That's pretty. I can get that out of Justin Fields if I have to. And if you also go look at Justin Fields just with the fit with Kevin Stefanski, if you could easily fit Justin Fields in a run-heavy concept that the Browns want to run here with a heavy zone run attack. If you look at Justin Fields' passer rating out of shotgun, it's 77. It's not great. But if you look at his passer rating out of play action, it's 103.2. I can live with that. If you ask Justin Fields to throw the ball 20, 25 times a game out of play action, have some designed runs for Justin Fields, that's an idea that I can get behind. And if you really build this thing around Justin Fields, I think he can have success. They didn't do that in Pittsburgh, and they really didn't do that at the end in Chicago, because they knew they were taking Caleb Williams. So signing Justin Fields and having him be your guy going forward would be my next proposition to the Browns, and something that I think would be following the Eagles' blueprint pretty effectively. Just to touch on this too, would you rather take a shot on a guy like Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, an older quarterback that you think that maybe you can get 1 to 2 years out of? Or would you rather go for a young Justin Fields that you try to build this thing around and maybe you have something going forward? The next thing I think the Browns need to do is revamp this running back room through the 2025 draft. There's about 100 running backs you can take in this draft that you'd feel pretty good about. Just to name a few: Caleb Johnson, Amarion Hampton, Cam Skattebo, R.J. Harvey, Quinshon Judkins. These are all guys you can bring in. You can probably draft 2 running backs if you really want to revamp this thing. Are you going to find a guy that's going to be Saquon Barkley? No, that's just not fair to ask that of somebody coming right out that you're probably going to take in the 3rd round anyway, 3rd round and beyond. But can you get a pretty effective run game with 2 of these guys and maybe bring Nick Chubb back on an incentive-based contract? Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good about that going into next season. So revamp this running back room is the next thing that the Browns need to do. Next thing I think that the Browns need to do is target a big-time receiver. Jerry Jeudy was effective last year, but it's a lot of garbage football that we played in. You threw how many different quarterbacks out there, and it was never a good thing with Deshaun Watson. T. Higgins is the big name in this free agency wide receiver class. You could go after a guy like T. Higgins. As we know, we got news that the cap has increased for the Browns, and with the restructures to be had, the Browns could really make a splash here with a guy like T. Higgins. He's got a large frame. This could be your comparison to like A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's a little bigger than T. Higgins is, but you get 6'4", 219 out of T. Higgins. He's a large frame, one-on-one pass catcher. If you paired T. Higgins with Jerry Jeudy and then maybe your third guys, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman. You can see what you have there, or even draft somebody, or bring in another guy out of free agency. I feel pretty good about that going into next year. You can surround Justin Fields with some playmakers and really build this thing around him. That would be the answer to the wide receiver room. Now that's probably the most aggressive thing that the Browns would have to do. How realistic is it that they could get T. Higgins? I don't know, but we know that Jimmy Haslam will spend money, so go after a guy like T. Higgins, I think would really be good for the Browns. Jump over to defense. What I think that the Browns could do on defense to revamp this thing, and this isn't even so much an issue that the Browns have had, but it would just be an embarrassment of riches. Draft Abdul Carter at the second pick and pair him with Myles Garrett. If you do all this, I'm looking at Myles Garrett and I'm saying, listen, man, you got to play. You got to play this year. We got to see what we have in this year. We're going to run this thing how Kevin wants to, and we're going to put a good team around you. If you have Abdul Carter on one side and Myles Garrett on the other side, and you can move those guys around the line, that is the best pass rush in the NFL. Not to mention the defensive line that you already have. If you pair Abdul Carter in your rotation is Ogbo and Isaiah McGuire, and then on the other side of that you have Myles and Alex Wright. The defensive tackle room, we saw a lot out of Mike Hall that we liked. You bring back a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson, Mo Hurst. You have a really good defensive line unit, and we know in the Jim Schwartz scheme that pass rush is his thing. Pass rush is the main thing you can use to affect the game, and we saw that out of the Browns defense in the past. These guys didn't forget how to play football. This year was just not a good year. So you bring these guys back, you bring back this defensive line unit, and you pair a talent with Abdul Carter with Myles Garrett. You have a very scary thing on that defensive line. And then the next thing they got to do is just figure out what you want to do with Greg Newsome. If you want to trade Greg Newsome, I feel good about Cam Mitchell in the slot corner position. And then bring back like Martin Emerson, Denzel Ward. You have a good fit there. As far as safety and linebacker goes, and this is the two things that I think the Browns need to be pretty aggressive in addressing, whether that be free agency or the NFL draft. Linebacker is a really tough position for the Browns right now. With the injury to JOK, we don't know what his status is going to be going into next year. We really haven't heard too much news on it. It hasn't been a thing talked about, and if I'm the Browns, I can't. If I go into next year with Devin Bush as my guy, we're not in a good spot. So this is my next points. Address linebacker. You have guys like Bobby Wagner out there. He just had a great year with the Commanders. He can be the captain of a defense right in the middle there. Bobby Wagner's a tackle machine. You could bring in a guy like that. You could probably get him relatively cheaply. He's an older linebacker, but he's effective. You could bring in a guy like that. And then, again, just like running back, just like edge, you have 100 different linebackers that you can pick from in this draft. Chris Paul Jr., Danny Stutzman, Cody Simon, Jay Higgins. You can probably get those guys in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, Cody Simon and Jay Higgins. And I feel good about those guys going into next year. So, linebacker, got to address this linebacker room. We saw in the Super Bowl with the Eagles. Their linebackers gave Patrick Mahomes heck all game. So linebacker, have to address it. Free agency, the draft. And then my next point is safety. You have guys like Javon Holland out here in the top 100. I think he was 3rd on the NFL's top 100 of free agents. Is that also aggressive? That's also similar to like the T. Higgins signing. It'd be pretty aggressive for the Browns to do that. You're probably going to have to pay him a little bit, but if you pair a guy like Javon Holland with Grant Delpit, that'd be a really good thing. And then say you don't want to go the free agency, or even if you do go the free agency route, you can pay a guy a pretty cheap deal. I don't feel good about Juan Thornhill, so you probably need to bring somebody in here, whether that be Javon Holland, another cheaper free agent, or even guys in the NFL draft like Kevin Winston or Andrew Makuba. You can probably find these guys in the 3rd or 4th round and feel pretty good about them going into next year. The defensive unit is the unit I'm less worried about if I'm the Browns, because we've seen them be successful with this group in the past, and these guys didn't forget how to play football. I think this was more of a Deshaun Watson issue, more of a belief in the quarterback, and more just dysfunction this season than it was anything. I think this defensive line, or this defensive unit, can be really good going into next year. Now, out of everything that I just laid out there, all that I'm asking the Browns to do next year is have a top 15, between top 15 and top 10 offense next year, and just have a really good defensive unit. If the Browns can be a top 5 defensive unit next year, and then they can rely on this run game and Justin Fields next year, there's no reason that the Browns can't be successful. So those are just some of my thoughts. I wanted to get to this video earlier, a couple weeks ago, right after the Super Bowl, but some things just got in the way. But the Browns have a good blueprint here from what the Philadelphia Eagles laid out for them. So those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, I appreciate you guys for watching. Go Brownies, baby.